always talking on mute. Hey y'all, how y'all doing? It's me, Allah. So glad y'all can join us. We are here for another amazing panel for Pride Month. Happy Pride. We are here. We are queer, and we are very intersectional. And this is our part 2 of our intersectionality panel. We are talking about the us versus them theory. I debated with that title and topic because it sounded a little controversial, but I'm hoping that's why you tuned in, because you wanted to know what was this about. So I want to bring our first panelist on. We have amazing set of experts on intersectionality because they are in themselves very intersectional. I want to bring our first panelist on. Adrian, you ready?
Hi, everybody.
Hey, introduce yourselves for these folks. Let them know who you are. What makes you you?
Yeah, of course. So, hello, my name is Adrienne Huck, and I use they, them pronouns. I'm 18 years old, and I just graduated from New Haven Public Schools, so I'm now in college. And I'm a trans and non-binary organizer and activist, especially around climate and the environment. And so one of the things I'm involved in when it comes to organizing is with the New Haven Climate Movement, and I am the co-founder of their youth team. So if you're around New Haven, maybe you've seen like some of these climate strikes. They're totally youth-led. So I'm so excited to be a part of that work, which is really important to me. And I'm also an artist, and I'm just a lover of people that go against the status quo and just radical believers who are constantly imagining new and beautiful ways for us all to thrive. I just think that is really dope.
Wow, thank you. I told y'all she was amazing. I want to bring my next person on. They're amazing. Oh my gosh. So sorry.
Okay.
Samantha. Hey, how you doing? Unmute yourself and introduce yourself for these folks. Let them know what you do.
Hello, hi guys. I'm Samantha. I'm 21 years old. I'm in college right now. I'm a social work major. I was born in Jamaica, which is like really interesting because I am queer. So like it was interesting growing up in that culture and then like finding myself and like I feel like growing up I was always like questioning things and I'm like, this doesn't seem right. And I'm an animal rights activism. So I do a lot of that. But I also like focus on other issues like human rights, women rights, trans rights, rights for everyone, because we all need to be equal. So that's me.
Thank you for that. I'm really interested and have lots of questions about your activism work. Yours as well, Adrian. I'm actually interested in both of those things and learning more. I want to bring our next panelist on, Mars.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Do you mind telling these folks about yourself? And
Totally. Hi, so my name is Mars. My pronouns are he, him, anytime, she, her, in drag, he, him, out of drag, she, her, in drag, they, them, anytime. Basically anything works. I am a trans man. I am a drag queen. My drag name is Rory. You can call me Mars or Rory, it doesn't really matter. I'm 21 years old. I am a ballet dancer. I used to be in theater a little bit. Now I mostly do drag. I sew. I do a lot of like political numbers. I do a lot of comedy. A lot of different things. Yeah, that's who I am.
Thank you. I already have so many other questions that I didn't send y'all. I want to bring my next panelist up here, our panelist Amber.
Hi everyone, how are you?
How you doing?
Hello. My name's Amber. I'm 26 years old. I'm a Black lesbian woman. I'm also a teacher, an artist. I'm Black as hell. I'm gay as hell. I'm loud as hell. And I just stand for what I believe in.
Yes. So excited. I want to bring our, and as I always say, last but definitely not least, our last panelist, Juan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Fonseca Tapia. I'm from Danbury. And I'm gay. I'm an immigrant. I grew up in Mexico. I'm an organizer. I have been doing organizing around immigrant issues. I don't consider myself an activist. I actually don't like that word. Um, and yeah, I'm queer, and I'm also the coordinator for Quest, which is based out of Waterbury, Queer Unity Empowerment Sport Team. So yeah.
Y'all are so cool.
I know, right? Like it's like you just automatically want to just get into a conversation and be like, "Tell me more about yourself." I want to do that. I want to. It was so important to highlight the intersection of what folks, people, humans look like in this world. We're really dope. We're really amazing, and then it's just so much more. So I want to go on to my first question, and this one is for everyone. I would like to hear what each and every one of y'all say. I'm have notes ready. What is your definition of intersectionality? Well, you know what? 1 second. I want to actually share the historical context of intersectionality because it's so important to name the things that we have that everyone's using. Intersectionality was created in the late 80s around the legal system by an amazing woman named Kimberle Crenshaw. She's a Black woman. She's absolutely amazing, fierce. She is still absolutely amazing and still fierce because she's still alive out here kicking ass and taking names and changing the world. And this term was created to better understand and name what was happening when Black folks entered into the legal system in any kind of way. And therefore, very quickly, you can understand that this is how everyone lives and what happens in everyone's life. And it's a term that you can look at everything. You can just use when you use intersectionality to look at things, you heal, you let go of stuff, you understand stuff, and sometimes you could just kind of move on and be like, I don't. So that leads me into the question, and I'm encouraged for whoever wants to answer first. What does intersectionality mean to you?
I'll go first. Intersectionality means to me is basically all of me coming together as one. So everything that defines me as who I am, as my being, as my race, as who I identify as, just all that stuff wrapped up to one, into one category, and how they're intersecting or coming together to make just one whole.
That's beautiful. Who wants to go next?
I'll go. To me, I feel like intersectionality is it's different identities that people tend to think of as like separate things, like separate groups of people, but like you can be a part of many different things that makes up who you are. And like to me, intersectionality is like taking those like separate groups and putting them together because they're all you.
I'll go next. For me, I think of intersectionality as a beautiful instrument that allows me to share and express the different elements of my identity that might not be obvious to some, or some people might not be able to perceive them. But again, that I can use that to share the complexity of who I am and what makes me me. And the other thing that I really wanted to add a lot, I love the fact that you brought Crenshaw, because I think that it's super important to give credit to Black women, right? And even though like right now, a lot of people are talking about all of these issues, and a lot of people love to use that word, but they never give the credit and and value to the work that Black women have done. So thank you so much for that.
You know how I roll. Samantha, Adrian.
So I'm gonna say intersectionality to me is like all the issues that I care about, or like the issues that affect me personally, and like how I can work to like bring awareness to that in society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I feel that it's kind of strange to think about, because we think of ourselves as like us and we know ourselves so well, but then we have all these labels put on us by society and through systems of oppression. So it's weird to think of ourselves as like all these different pieces put into a box, but that's just how it is. And I think it is a beautiful thing, you know, being able to bring all these experiences together. And it really makes us all unique. It brings different experiences to us all, different beliefs and morals. So I think it's just a beautiful, like all the paints that come together to make this beautiful picture of who we are.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was over here like, and so what I heard, really quick, like, and it was like in the, anyways, Amber, like you were saying, it makes you whole. And then Mars, when you answered, you said all your separate groups put together, and and like what I got out of this, what I wrote down was wholeness. And then Juan, when you answered, you said a beautiful instrument to share your complexity and all the unknown parts of you that you can't just like look and see or like readily know. And then Sam, you follow that in and were like the issues that affect me and how I bring me into society. And then Adrian, you just like put the net, you was like, bang! You was like, because these systems of oppression created these boxes, but then we made something so beautiful. And again, back to the wholeness of us and how we make such a beautiful paint. And then that goes into like our rainbow. And then it's just like, bomb. Yes. Yes, Rock. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And thank y'all for that. Those things led right into what Juan, what you were kind of speaking to, and what I want to go into, because that's just right there. The ancestors are telling me. But the erasure of Kimberle Crenshaw, I just left an oppression training that I wasn't doing, but I was at. And folks throw around intersectionality. And I'm like, oh, hey, do you know where that comes from? Because I'm like ready to have the conversation, because I'm always looking for my tribe, and you can't look at a person and directly know if they're your tribe until you converse with them. And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, this Black woman, Kimberle Crenshaw, and they're here named Kimberle Crenshaw, and I'm like, so you don't, this is cool. Okay, our conversation is done. Because it's hard to always have that kind of conversation the way you think you're going to have it. But you can understand why some folks would take the term and move it into other spaces, because it's such a succinct thing. It makes so much sense. And so, hold on, my iPad blinked on me. Okay. How does intersectionality play a role in your queerness, and how in your community, and how that shows up in your community? How does your intersectionality, actually not Rose version, but your personal own intersectionality show up in your queerness? Anybody want to?
I feel like that's kind of hard to answer. It's very complex. Could you like give an example from your perspective?
Definitely. So being, as y'all, most folks on this panel kind of know me, but I am an organizer, right? I'm a mom. The work I do, I also work here at the Pride Center creating youth panels and doing youth work and creating programs. And even in that, I move very intersectionally, but all the work I do are facets of who I am. my queerness, I get to direct all the things that I wanted to see and need as a queer person who doesn't kind of fit into labels, even though visually I could fit into some very binary labels. But then once you get into me, it was still hard to place in that space. And then the work I do with Black Lives Matter New Haven was because just my Blackness, I couldn't anymore. And then the work that I do with children and youth and leadership is directly connected to my motherhood and wanting to not force my son into being like, you got to read all these books, but invite him, but to create spaces with other youth that are kind of already engaged in the work and wanting to do that already, so that he can kind of just like see and then decide on his own. Whereas opposed to if I forced it on him, he'll run away for it and then wake up 45 trying to be a better Black man. And I don't need him to be like that. As a queer Black woman who's raising a person who identifies as a straight Black man, I have to especially do this queer work too, especially queer youth work, to show him all those things. So for me, like, I guess that I would say intersectionally, I try to really place that and all the work and the things that I decide to do for work. And so that's what I mean. And as far as your queerness, who you are all your things, the work that you do. But how does your queerness show up in animal activism and organizing when that's not directly queer? You know what I mean? How does your queerness show up in that?
And I guess I'll jump next. And I'm gonna go back to my introduction when I said that I didn't like the word activist, because I actually think that word comes with a lot of privilege. And for me, organizing and fighting, I don't have that option. I don't have the privilege to choose to do that. I know that I have to. Again, I'm a brown gay immigrant, and I know that I don't have the option to not do something. So that's why, again, I don't like that word. I grew up in Mexico, and I think that my identity, my Mexican identity, really helped me understand, again, intersectionality, especially after I moved here, right? And I realized that the way that it shows up in my community and in my queerness is I use that to educate people, because again, we have a lot of people that use that word a lot and they don't even understand what intersectionality is. They will use that interchangeably with diversity or stuff like that. And it's like, no, you don't get it. And again, I think that if I am fighting for liberation, I know that intersectionality, understanding intersectionality and centering that on the work that I do, that's the only way that I can get there. And again, making sure that the people that want to do queer work understand that if we don't use intersectionality to also show what are the issues that I face as a brown person, then the work that we're doing as a queer organization or as a queer group doesn't really do anything. Because again, at the end of the day, when I go on the street, people see a brown man, they don't see a gay man, right? And I said this before to people, I think that a lot of times people don't understand that. And it's easier for me to, like, I could go back into the closet because I didn't come out until I was 21. And I could hide my sexuality, right? I could do everything I can to hide that part of who I am. But I cannot go in the closet to hide my brownness. And I think that I use that to make sure that I am educating people and that I am using that to center all the issues that we are really fighting against when we are talking about liberation.
Thank you for that.
I can
Does anybody
piggyback
else?
off of I thought it was really cool how he said he couldn't, you can't closet your brownness, but you can closet your sexuality or how you identify as a gay male. I don't think that I've ever really been closeted, if that makes any type of sense. Like, yeah, I've had to, identify as gay out loud or as a lesbian woman out loud, but it was never like an uncomfortable topic for me. So even as an educator, especially in a professional setting, and especially if you're going to teach all types of students, I found myself in predominantly white schools where it felt like I was supposed to be closeting my Black, or supposed to be closeting my, sexuality or who I am as a person. And it just never works out. Like, I'm not staying somewhere I'm not comfortable. So if you can't accept all parts of me, then I just feel like there's no need for me to be there. So now I'm in a place where I have a classroom full of Black babies, and to be like their voice board, or to be their listening board where they can feel very comfortable in any intersection that they identify with, is amazing. So I have kids come out to me all the time. I have kids asking me about their roots all the time. I've exposed some of my Black babies to our Black history because they're not being exposed. I've exposed some of my gay babies to their gay history because they're not being exposed. I let them be comfortable in their intersections and their skin. So with that being said, I have to walk tall and be very comfortable in all my intersections so I can be a mirror for them. Like, listen, keep your chin up. You're Black. It's okay. You're gay. It's okay. You're trans. It's okay. Whatever you identify as and it makes you feel whole and you're comfortable, then that's okay. And I don't want you to think that you're anything less than anyone else or what anybody on the outside is telling you, because these 8 hours that you are with me, this is your safe space. So yeah, we're going to work through all your identities, all your intersections, and we're going to, get to a point where you are okay identifying with all 17 parts of you.
I wish I had a teacher like you, Amber, when I was in school. Like, younger me, like that would have been like so fundamental to my growth and accepting myself, I think. Yeah.
It's so needed. And I think that's why I became an educator, because I didn't see me in the education system ever. Like, I've had my couple of Black teachers, but they were very much so this kind of teacher. They were very much so this kind of person. I never was able to look at my teacher like, wow, I understand it. I have a volleyball coach who I looked at like, wow, she understands me wholeheartedly. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I started working with kids, because they need to see someone who looks like them.
Can I add on to that?
Oh, wait. So I wanted to hear what Samantha, because Samantha was going
Yes,
to say something. And I'm going to go back to you, Adrian. And don't worry, I got you. I got the order. I got you.
I was just gonna say, like, how I try to represent my queerness in the community. Like, whenever I'm in school, like, I try to put it in my schoolwork. Like, if we have to do a certain assignment, I try to like bring up queer issues and I like present it in front of the class. And I'm like, this is what's going on. Like, one project I did something about gaps, like domestic violence in the trans community, how like they have the highest rates of domestic violence. And I was also like the vice president of the Pride Club at my school, and I also tried to like do certain events to like get people to ask each other their pronouns and get familiar with telling teachers like, this is my pronoun, just like certain things like that.
Adrian?
Yeah, so just to piggyback off of that education conversation, I wanted to add some more about how intersectionality showed up in education. So I quite literally like had to come out in high school to all my teachers and everyone because I needed them to use other pronouns and another name. So I did have to take that step and put myself out there in order to be seen and accepted for who I was. And I was also president of my school's GSA. And so the way that my intersectionality showed up in education was that just being an LGBTQ student is not easy. And I've had some great teachers in high school that were great allies to me, but it is definitely not a nurturing school environment for everybody. So I just wanted to add that, and also like how it shows up in relationships, just like because I have to explain myself and my identity to everyone new I meet, if I want them to use like my correct name and pronouns, it is just, putting myself out there, and I just don't fit, the ideal kind of cookie cutter of what, you know, what a trans person looks like, what a non-binary person looks like, what a queer person looks like. Because even if, like, I'm sure a lot of queer people of color can relate to this, like if you look up, like, I don't know, LGBTQ community on like Google Images, it's just a lot of white people, and it's often like very white centered. So just, you know, being who I am as a queer person of color is not the norm. So that's definitely a way that my intersectionality shows up.
Yeah, I feel like I'm definitely like a very visibly queer person. Like if anyone looks at me like, oh, that person is queer. And like as like a trans man who doesn't pass as a man ever really, like you said, like I always have to explain my identity if I want people to like recognize who I am. But I don't know, and like within like, because like I feel like a lot of like my intersections are like within the queer community, and like I know like we're talking about like queerness like intersecting with other things too, but like even just within the queer community, like I'm a trans man and I'm a drag queen, which like those two like people don't tend to think like go together. But like from my experiences like in drag, like there's so many drag performers that are not cis men, and the audience tends to always just assume that we are. And I don't know, it's really interesting, like having like that like layer of identity. Like when I'm performing, like a lot of my performances are like specifically about who I am. I have a number where like I give myself my T-shot on stage and like stuff like that. And like to see someone in like a wig, tons of makeup, a dress, giving themselves a testosterone shot is like weird for some people, but that's just my life. So I don't know, like I feel like for me, like a lot of like my intersections are like within my queerness, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes all the sense. And that is the, yes. 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 I don't even, yeah, just yes. And so much came up for me, because, and I think you hit it on the head. Like once you realize that you're queer, no matter if you're 3 or 5 or 14, it's a different life. And then when you decide to reveal it, but if you have the intersection of really truly needing to be seen, and so you either got to choose being unseen or seen, and that's like an intersection in I think in a queer community that gets overlooked and gets washed away, and folks don't even try to be empathetic and understand in our queer community. You know what I mean? And like in our queer community, I always say like I expect the straights to be as dismissive or as violent and all those things because they're not in our community. But it's just a particular extra kind of hurt when, for whatever reason, folks want to like throw you away for whatever reason, and you're queer, but you're like, oh, this is the only acceptable kind of queer, and I'm like, what? Like, you know, it's like still, you know, and I'm not, y'all folks are young. I'm not young, and I still literally just be like, it's like a mind blown every time. So I guess, yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of discrimination from queer people to other queer people, and I don't understand that at all. Like, except, like, I've seen lesbians who are TERFs, and I'm just like, why? You're also queer.
Yeah. I remember, I just learned the term TERFs when I started working at the Pride Center. I learned so much about my community. I think that's why I honor this space so much, because you just never, intersectionally, right? You just never stop learning about your intersections, no matter how old you are, how young you are. Like the more you get into yourself, the more you get into yourself, you know what I mean? And I think that brings up the us versus them theory. And that's what I wanted to, I was really thinking of how I wanted to make this different from the last intersectionality panel, aside from just not, you know, knowing that y'all folks are totally different from the last folks. But I've really been looking at all what's happening in the world right now and with all the uprisings. And for me, my approach on uprising is very intersectional, but I get a lot of pushback, and then it's like a us versus them, and then it's so many us's and so many thems. The more you get intersectional, and like sometimes the people who used to be a us are now a them. And I wanted to ask my next question is, as far as the us versus them mentality, we tend to see when non-queer people speak about any improvements made in the fight for the human rights of queer folks. How much do you buy into that mentality? How much do you find yourself sometimes subscribing to an us versus them mentality and thinking about all the way non-queer folks come against our community, and then how sometimes queer folks come against some of your particular intersections that you hold? If you don't find yourself doing that, that's really amazing. And can you tell us how? Either way.
So yeah, I gotta admit that I think I do buy into the us versus them mentality quite a bit, even like, you know, as a trans person with like other queer people being the thems. Like Samantha was mentioning before, there's even like a lot of prejudice and discrimination within the LGBTQ community. And I remember just like someone, just like a random person on the internet just messaging me and like coming for me about like why I present this way but use these pronouns, but like use this identity. And it was so this person was a binary trans person, and I was like, there are so many ways to be trans and non-binary, and it was just like really a wake-up call. Like, people are really just stuck in these boxes. So even if they are, you know, on our side, sometimes they're not. And also just like the transphobia coming from like queer people is also pretty unacceptable. But yeah, I do see that us versus them theory coming from even within this community. And of course, you know, with, you know, cisgender and straight people, just, yeah. So I find that in both of those spaces, within our community and outside the community, there seems to be a lot of division. Especially for those who are feeding into just heteronormative and just really binary ways of thinking. That's even like something that we need to overcome within the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I try not to buy into it, but it gets hard when people are upset because you see a gay couple on TV, or people are upset because we finally have representation in certain areas where they're not used to seeing us represented. So then it kind of becomes like okay, well, it's the straights against the gays, because the straights have never, I have a lot of allies, but there's been times where people, oh, you're confused, or there doesn't need to be a gay couple on this channel. This is a child's channel. Why do children need to see this? And all that, yada, yada. And then as far as Adrian was saying, it does get kind of murky in the LGBT community because we should all be one and be, you know, close knitted. But I have seen us lesbians or gay men go against trans folk, and I don't feel like that's okay. So like it's kind of we have to figure out how to get to the point where we're protecting our sisters and our brothers, and there shouldn't be any question about it. I don't care what you're presenting yourself as. Your pronouns are going to be what you want them to be. They should still be protected and loved and, you know, respected in the community because they are part of our community.
I guess I'll go next. Is it okay if we curse here?
I'm always cursing. I'm surprised I haven't cursed.
I don't get upset. I get fucking angry when I think about the us versus them, because and the times that I find myself doing that, I think that Amber, you were talking about representation. I think that when we think about all the different kind of violence that we experience within our community or the oppressions that we perpetuate, I always go back to white supremacy and how is it that white cis gay men have centered the queer narrative around them. And and that again, it gets me fucking angry, because especially when we think about what is the perception of the queer experience, most of the people that have access to mainstream society are white gay men, and they create this false perception of what it's like to be queer. And we live out all of these different groups, like all of these people that are part of our community that don't face issues just because of the fact that they're queer, but because of the fact that they're Black, because of the fact that they're trans. So again, every time that I see white gay men centering themselves and saying that they want to fight oppression, that gets me angry. And again, I think that that's a reflection of the fact that they don't understand why is it that we had to fight, which is white supremacy. And one of the things that I always try to do whenever I'm talking to people, especially when we're having these conversations about us versus them, I always go back to Black trans women, because if we center Black trans women and we make sure that we are doing work for them to have liberation, then by default, I'm gonna reach liberation. And until we do that, and again, people that have access to mainstream society or that are gatekeepers, until they understand that, we're gonna continue to fight within. Because again, even within our own community, a lot of people still don't understand that we cannot talk about Amber being queer without talking about the fact that she is Black. So yeah.
I think I definitely. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
You can go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. I was gonna say I definitely feed into the us versus them mentality. I think especially because I'm a Black woman, and I feel like sometimes a lot of Black people are not very accepting to like the queer community. And like even when you talk about Black Lives Matter, they're like, oh, they're not talking about like queer Black lives or like Black trans people. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I have to work harder and keep like bringing that up and be like, yeah, these lives matter too. Like we should be talking about this as well. So I feel like that's where that comes from. Like I'm trying to like make up for other people not doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I definitely buy into like the us versus them mentality. Like I think like for me, like at the end of the day, like people outside of like my identities can support and understand as much as they can about me, but they're still, if you're not part of a certain demographic, you cannot understand what it's like to be part of that demographic, if that makes sense. So I don't know, for me, like that's like where like the us versus them mentality like really comes in. And like especially like within the queer community too, like as someone like who's like trans and like visibly like queer, not gay, if that makes sense. Like I don't know, like I feel like there's definitely like within the queer community there's like queer people and like gay people, and like I feel like I don't know, like to me, like I definitely like buy into like the whole like cis white gay men are like a separate category, and like I don't know, like I definitely tend to think of them as a them, like us versus them, like even like when I necessarily shouldn't. And like I don't know, like I've like definitely gotten like transphobia from like gay people. I've definitely gotten like homophobia from trans people, which is wild to think about. So like as someone who's like kind of in like the middle of both of those groups, like it's weird to think like who is the them and who is the us at some times. Like I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually hoping that you would say more on that, because that is I feel like an identity, because I always feel my son's coming to check on me. He thinks he's my dad. I feel I'm still learning that in allyship that you just have to sometimes make the space that centers the folks and just not be there. You know what I mean? Because that's what real allyship really does. Is like you do all the work to make sure that the folks who would struggle and need or just don't need to do the labor to get that space going, get it going for them and exit the space, you know? But I feel like for the ignored identities, your intersection is a very much ignored identity. The intersections of folks who aren't passable, don't want to be passable, can't be passable, those intersections, because of society, we're so stuck to binary that we will throw folks away in our queer community that although I don't live at that intersection, I feel like it's a beautiful intersection because I think all my areas of complexity make me like the best part of myself. So, and that's hard to explain to other people who don't have, like you said, that lived exactly a lived experience, but like you have a lived experience that's like that. And so I'm like always curious as to why folks in our queer community don't work harder to support those folks. And it seems like sometimes it feels like the community on a whole works harder to squash those folks because we're trying to attain some heterosexual dream, but still be queer, gay or queer. And like, how are you still queer if you want to be straight? Like, you know, if you want to be straight, be straight. We don't have to be, I don't want to be straight. I don't want to be straight boxes, like these boxes, all these lines are straight lines and I'm curvy, you know, I don't fit in boxes. Like we don't, and I don't know. It's just a weird intersection of when queer folks mirror heteronormative things. And then if something doesn't mirror a heteronormative thing in the queer community, they throw it away. And I think that's what I was trying to say. And I just don't understand because I thought that was the point of us being queer, was to love those identities. And the more I understand of our queer community, the more I see the erasure of those folks instead of like finding this, I don't know. So anyways, our
Allah, can I add a little bit more on that? Just speaking. I think that when that happens, especially again when you're saying that you have queer people that want to do these efforts to try to adapt to the heteronormative, I think that there is a lot of healing that these people have not done, and healing is a process, right? And I think that a lot of people fail to understand how broken they are, and instead of like doing the work, because it's a lot of fucking work to deal with all that we have been suppressing for years, and then again society has pushed us to suppress that even more. I think that a lot of people subconsciously think that, again, trying to do everything to fit into those heteronormative boxes, it's easier than, again, doing all that work. And and for me, I catch myself, like I'm still healing, and I'm still fighting like internalized homophobia that is deep down. And I have to catch myself. I mean, like, wait, no, like I love that about me. And I think that until we, like, people understand and kind of like do a self-assessment and realize that, hey, like I'm broken and I need to do healing. Until then, like that process is gonna be a process in which we learn to love ourselves,
right?
And all the different sides of ourselves. And like healing for me it's love, right? And doing that work to heal ourselves is it's also respect. We are respecting and loving ourselves. And I think that a lot of people just are afraid of doing that, and also think that, again, if we were to put that on a spectrum, it's harder they think that it's easier for them to gravitate towards the normative and the dominant class than go all the way to the other side and do all that internal work. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is definitely a process that, you know, I'm still going through. Many people in the queer community are still going through undoing all those internalized messages. And so when I was mentioning before about the person who was like policing me online about my identity, like in that moment, I was like really heated and confused. But looking back, yeah, I do realize that it wasn't their fault. You know, this is what society feeds into us. And even if we are queer, we're still, until we do that healing work, we're still going to uphold those oppressive systems. So looking back, I just see that person as uneducated and hasn't seen, you know, all the beautiful ways it is to be trans. And yeah, definitely all of us have healing work to do, to make sure that, you know, within this community, we're allowing people to be queer and to be all the ways that we can be within that identity that's not falling into heteronormative standards.
Thank you for that. Yes, I wish y'all folks, I wish we could just put this in a bottle and just like give it to queer folks all over and we could just heal. And that makes me want to throw away the last question that I had, but I'll and ask this question instead. If you would not mind sharing some of the ways, because it's not just a monolithic way that you heal around being able to be free and liberated to be yourselves. Is there ways that y'all can share, and feel free to share with folks that, especially young folks that are watching and that might be up 3 o'clock in the morning watching this, needed some saving grace?
I can start that one off. I feel like the biggest thing that has helped me is finding a safe space and a community you can feel safe in. So not more like, especially when you're hurt and you have some healing to do and you have the work to do, you need to find someone who is willing to help you get through that hurt so you can start doing the work that you need to do. Because hurt individuals, especially our babies, our young ones, our teenagers, especially when they're hurt, they're not thinking straight. They're not trying to do that, healing that they need to do. They're just trying to make it stop. They want the hurt to stop. And they're going to do that any way they can do that. So until you can help them get to, I don't know, base 2, so they can get to their home run, they're going to stay at base 1. They're not going to know how to get through that trauma or that hurt or that pain from not being accepted in their family or their home. So like when I was growing up, I'm very, very, very family oriented. And my family has held me down no matter what. I could tell them that, hey, I don't want to be black no more. I'm yellow. I'm green. I'm orange. They would still hold it down. So I know that I have a safe net. I have somewhere where I can be truly Amber. And a lot of our babies don't have that. A lot of our adults don't have that, unfortunately. So I think that having a safe haven, whether it be like I was watching the last episode a couple of weeks ago, whether it be a house that you're in, whether it be, your classroom where you feel safe, or your house, or with your partner, just to be able to and breathe and let all that society shit go and all that stuff that's going on outside of your 4 squares or your 4 lines where you're safe, let it go and find somewhere where you can finally breathe and not try to subside or be what they want you to be, if that makes sense.
For me, I think like something that really helped me is art. I like express myself through art a lot, and that's like helped me like discover who I am. When I started doing drag, I wasn't out as trans yet, and I'm starting to know who Mars is more, but like it's still, like a process every day. But I always knew who Rory was, and like having someone to like escape through like helped me figure out who I am outside of that, and that like really, I don't know, that like helped me figure out who I was and be like comfortable with who I was and comfortable with things that like initially like made me feel like less than. So art has definitely been a big help for me. I feel like it's such like any type of art is such like a great way to express emotions, because you can like leave your baggage at the door, but also address those issues through something creative at the same time, if that makes sense. And So that's something that's really helped me. And like you were saying, like finding a community of people like who love and support you and you can be yourself around is like so essential. I'm so lucky to have so many amazing friends that like I know I could go to like with anything and like understand who I am and like allow me to grow in my identity, if that makes sense. So yeah, for me, I think art and finding community are like the two most important things.
I cried a lot, and I still cry sometimes. But I remember that again when I was going through that time of saying, okay, like, I mean, I have always known that I'm gay, but I need to share that with the people around me. I went to bed crying almost every night for a very long time. And even though a lot of times we think about crying as being sad, I mean, that is one of the ways that I was allowing myself to feel those things. Because those feelings are shitty, and it's like, again, a lot of times we don't want to feel them. So allowing myself to do that, and convincing myself about the fact that it's okay to be vulnerable when I am by myself and in front of others, that was another thing that, again, definitely helped me, and it continues to help me because I'm capable of being with people that love me and support me and be myself and be vulnerable. And I know that, again, that is a safe space for me. And in that space, I'm going to be able to share all these different things that I liked before, but that I had to suppress because, again, I was told that I could not be that or that I couldn't do that. And the other thing that helped me a lot was finding a kind of like a grounding experience. A lot of times I feel that things are like super crazy and like anxiety is kicking in and depression is kicking in and just everything, and it feels like I can't do this anymore. And I always go back to that moment where I was just super happy and present and connected with nature in a way that it's hard to explain, but I was able to have that. So for me, those things are, yeah, the things that I've done to heal, and I continue to do.
For me, writing definitely helped a lot during like my formative like teenage years. Writing from the perspectives of other characters really helped me understand more of even like who I was. Also, I kind of make a point to follow a lot of different influencers, not even just influencers. I wouldn't consider them that. I just consider them, you know, my people. So I kind of follow, like, I think maybe at least one person from every single LGBTQ identity on Instagram, and that, you know, seeing these photos of people who are going against the norm is so, so helpful to, you know, just broadening your perspective about what queer people can look like. And it's been really helpful in undoing like internalized things within your brain. So I totally recommend following a really diverse group of people. You know, it's even better when you can see yourself within some of these people. That's definitely been really helpful. You know, as someone who is South Asian, I like never see any queer representation about people who look like me. So I've been able to find a few of those influencers, and just like seeing them and like knowing that they exist and we have similarities is really, really comforting. Also, I love LGBTQ young adult books. I don't know how, if it's going to be like so appealing to like older folks, but yeah, I make an effort to, you know, find some, read some, and they're just comforting to see, you know, even if they're fictional, people that are like me at my age. And yeah, just a shameless plug for this one. So good, Felix Ever After. It's about a Black transgender and queer 17-year-old by Case and Calendar. So shameless plug for that book. So affirming.
Can you post the names for some of those books? Because I've been looking for books to read during quarantine or whatever.
Oh yeah, of course. I'll just briefly mention the ones that are on this stack. So this is I Wish You All the Best by Vincent Deaver. It's about a non-binary teenager, and they're coming out and kind of coming of age, finding themselves. This one I haven't read yet. Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. And this one is Felix Ever After by Case and Calendar. Oh, okay. We did get a question.
I was gonna say.
Actually, there was a question. I wanted to really make sure we got that time for that. Someone asked, what advice can you give a trans young person whose family doesn't accept them? So I'm assuming that their family is not a safe space. So anyone, but especially folks that speak to that identity, I know that they would love to hear from
you. Yeah, definitely. I think finding community is so important, even if, it's virtual, it's still so important to find people who are like you in the same situation. The internet is such a great resource. I think it can put out, a lot of important opportunities, discussion groups, or even, making an internet friend who you don't actually know. But yeah, definitely finding people who will accept you, whether you know them in person or not. And yeah, I think it's just important to have a friend or a few that share your identity or will just accept you for who you are. So that's really important for me for finding someone or some place that I'm comfortable with.
I think especially with COVID now, with so many things being online, it's actually a really great resource for people who can't necessarily be out to their families or go to actual queer events. There's so many things you can do online to connect with other people in the same communities as you. So I think definitely finding someone who shares your experiences is one of the most helpful things you can do. Also, and I know this is easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you know who you are, and even if the people around you aren't accepting of that or don't recognize that, they can't take away the fact that you are you and you know that.
I would also say, although I'm not trans, I do want to speak to saying that before I came out, I really needed to figure out. And I would definitely suggest trying to do some history around queer, do some research, read books by queer authors. Definitely there's a great source of audiobooks now. Almost every book that is written, if accessibility is an issue for you and reading is an issue, no problem. There's audiobooks. And finding community, we have the Pride Center has some really great programs. There are some other spaces around the state of Connecticut, but yes, call in. Let us know. Text me, email me rather. There's my email. I would definitely say follow the folks on this panel. They're pretty affirming just in their regular identities. But if you connected to anyone and you're watching and you really connected to anyone that were really speaking to what you were saying, definitely follow them on social media. Follow New Haven Pride Center's IG. We have IG for youth. Definitely follow that. That'll show all our next and up and coming programming. So I would definitely say, like, really spend some time trying to find community. I understand that that is way more easier said than done when you're a trans young person and you're in a non-safe living space. So take your time. Really, while we have some time, the best thing about COVID is that it forces people to leave you alone a little bit more. So try to go out in nature a little bit more, ground yourself. If you don't have a particularly rejected reason for grass, take your shoes off, walk around, ground yourself, try writing. Definitely, we have a youth safe space at the Pride Center. We definitely, it's every Thursday. We have some other support groups. We are looking to create more support groups, so it's good to know that that this is a space that we want to create and cultivate. We want to continue to have these conversations, but knowing that, sticking in there, keep trying to find your community, don't give up, find in love on yourself, figure out more about yourself too. You know what I mean? That's why I said it's good to like learn about other trans folks and like folks and like find the obscure folks and find someone you connect to. And again, we're here for you at the Pride Center. And call us and let us know if you need some more in-depth support. And JC will make sure, JC, myself, Patrick, everyone, Maya, Laura, we all will come back together and try to really support you as best as we can. And like I said, make sure you connect to these folks. We're gonna be closing out, but I wanna go back to what Adrian was doing. They share some really amazing books. I'm a reader too. I normally have a stack of books next to the piano. But if anyone else is reading anything that they right now or just got finished reading anything they want to share, shout your social media networks handles out. I'm old, y'all. I'm sorry. Yeah, and then we'll bid you all adieu. We'll go. Adrian, you're at the top to my thing, so we'll just go around. I don't know if your screen looks like mine.
Yeah, so those are the ones off the top of my head that I can remember that I'm reading right now. I have read a couple other things during quarantine, but there's like so many awesome LGBTQ, especially young adult books. So I can drop that, I think, in the comment section on Facebook once I get to that after the panel, because there's probably a lot that I'm missing. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. Once again, on Facebook, I'm Adrian Huck. On Instagram, I'm w0w.adrian. But it has been so lovely to hear from you all and bring all our experiences to the forefront. And so it's just been lovely sharing space with you all. So thank you.
Sam?
So I'm also a reader. I've been reading some like ebooks. One of my favorite series is called The Bone Witch. It's about this girl who practices necromancy. She's rejected by the community. I haven't really read any books with LGBTQ plus people, so like I'd be really interested in reading books with that representation. But I've watched a good show. I watched was Sheer and the Princesses of Power. It's it has a lot of good representation of queer people. Like it's really good. Like you guys should check it out. It's on Netflix. I don't know if anyone knows that show. No,
but I'm definitely gonna get into it.
But thank you for bringing up the shows aspect. That totally like flew over my mind. Affirming like TV shows is super important. So if y'all have recommendations, please, I would love to hear.
Rory?
So I'm not really much of a reader, but I like theater a lot. And one of my favorite things to watch that I actually just watched today before I came here was I love the show Hedwig and the Angry Inch so much. It's so amazing. It's basically the whole show is just like one monologue with like one character. And like she is like a queer, maybe trans, it's very like her identity is so like it's so like fluid and like interesting to watch. Like I feel like there's so many intersections like with who she is, and it's such a good show. And that was like one of like the first things like I watched like in like high school that like really like made me like oh, like that could be me. Like I connect to this so much. But yeah, I totally recommend it. There's a movie. There's also like on YouTube, there's like a few like professionally filmed versions of the stage show. There's like also some bootlegs of the stage show. But yeah, I don't know. For me, like I think like that's something that everyone should just watch. Oh, and sorry. And you can follow me on Instagram at Rory Roulette. That's RoryRouxLay.
Thank you. Amber?
One of the recent documentaries that I watched on Netflix is called Disclosure. It's about trans history, and I don't want to give away too much because it was really good. And another book, I'm really into like psychological thrillers. So a book that I recently read was The Wipes. And once again, I can't really like explain it without giving too much. It's just mental health-esque. So you'll figure it out once you get to the second chapter, honestly. And shameless plug, I'm an artist. I am a minimalist abstract artist. You can follow me on Instagram at OAMBAM, or you can look up the hashtag art by Am. OHAMBAM is my Instagram, and then the hashtag is just art by Am, AMB.
Juan? Oh, you're muted, Juan.
Okay, sorry. I'm not a big fan of fiction. Something that I definitely recommend, and I have been telling people, again, in the spaces that I have been or the organizing work that I have been doing, is sharing about Gloria Anzaldúa. She wrote Borderlands, and she's a lesbian Chicana that writes a lot about identity, and especially healing and unlearning. And I think that, again, a lot of the work that I am trying to do myself is just a lot of unlearning. And I think that she does a really great job at kind of like walking us through that. And the other thing that I definitely recommend is, if you have some kind of connection to whether it is indigenous cultures or African cultures, try to find writers or people from those cultures, because I think that their knowledge and their views on life are the proof of like resisting and fighting whiteness and like this Western culture, that Western lens that everything has been filtrated through. So even queer writers of color are their formation has been filtrated through that lens. So I try to find people like that have a closer connection to those cultures, and the stuff that they're writing about, again, it's around that. And also music, finding queer artists. There is this singer, it's a trans man. His name is Ken Christopherson. And he actually won the Tiny Desk contest on NPR. And I saw him perform in Alaska, and like I fell in love with him. And his music just makes me cry, but it's great. So yeah, music and again, trying to unlearn, find things that are going to help us unlearn all the things that we have been conditioned to be. And you guys can follow me on Instagram. My handle is Bad Brown Hombre. It's right there. So you guys can look me up. Yeah.
Yes. So I want to let everyone know again, my name is Ala. I am the youth program officer here at New Haven Pride Center. If you want to get in touch with me, get in touch with me right there. We have still so many programs coming up through the rest of our programs, our women's programs, our Latinx programs, and Pride Month. Don't forget, Pride in Person is in October. If you haven't been able to check out any of the panels and stuff that we've had going already, please don't hesitate to look at all our accounts. We have all of our panels up. We have some amazing panels. We had some workshops for this weekend. So it was amazing. So if you haven't been able to look at that stuff, please go in and look at all our stuff. Our panels are right there. Thank you so much. I'm a terrible marketer sometimes. But I'm going to do my shameless plug for my book, Anarcho Blackness. And it's not a heavy read. So for folks who are like, ugh, with the reading, it's not a heavy read. But it is a heavy read because it allows us to think about anarchy and organizing from a very queer, Black queer perspective. And so when you see this, you're like anarcho blackism, that blackness that's going to be super Black and like rah rah rah, but it's super queer Black. So that means like all of our identities on this panel are included, and we're talking about anarchy and anarchism and what that means. And as y'all know, I'm an organizer, so I'm always reading that, and I find anything that talks about and speaks to the queer identity and ties it into any other intersection in the world is something that I really want to read because I feel like the author might actually get it. So I love y'all so much. Thank you for being with us. Make sure that if you're joining us live on social media or in the internet lands, virtually rather, and you weren't able to catch anybody's links, just rewind back once we finish live. Just go back and you can get all their links and you can get back in touch with these amazing folks. And if you can't do that, please reach out to us at the New Haven Pride Center. We'll make sure you get their information. We love y'all so much. Thank you for spending time. Thank you so much, you all. You all are amazing. Thank you for spending time with us and letting the world know so much about yourself because of your intersectionality. So thank you so much. And y'all have an amazing